everybody, this is Ogre Boy, and I'm going to be doing my top 10 favorite animated movies from the 2000s. For this list, I'm going to rank 10 of my favorite animated movies that came out between the year 2000 and 2009. And there was a lot of good animated movies released in that decade, so there may be some that I miss or just didn't put on here because I would try to keep it limited on some of them. There's a lot of Disney ones that I liked throughout that decade, and Pixar, but I kind of tried to limit them as much as I could and everything. So I just wanted to point that out before, and I'll probably do some honorable mentions either before or after I do my number 1. So number 10 is the SpongeBob Squarepants movie from 2004. I remember this movie came out. I didn't really want to see it, mainly because my mom was like babysitting these kids and we would be staying at their house a lot and everything because their dad worked nights and stuff. So, and one of them, me and him did not get along at all, and he was obsessed with SpongeBob, and because of him I hated it. And I had no desire to see it. About 2 or 3 years after the movie came out, I ended up watching it and fell in love with it. It was just such a hilarious movie, and they blended the comedy and stuff in this movie perfectly, and it had some catchy tunes that get stuck in my head every time I watch it. It's mainly the Goofy Goober song, and I just love Patrick. He's just such an idiot, but he's so likable. And I haven't seen the second SpongeBob movie yet. I need to watch it. I just haven't ever got around to it. It's actually one that I have that I need to watch. So, but I do love this one quite a bit. I think it was a big surprise for me and everything, because I had kind of grown out of SpongeBob at that time too when it first came out. I had liked watching it for the first few years it was out, and then I kind of grew tired of it because SpongeBob was never one of my favorite shows as a kid anyway. I actually like it a lot more now than I did back then because as I've gotten older, nostalgia of course kind of makes me appreciate it a lot more now and everything. But I absolutely love the movie. It's one that I always enjoy when I rewatch it and everything. So the SpongeBob SquarePants movie is number 10, and number 9 is Peter Pan and Return to Neverland. This one was pretty much like a direct-to-video movie, like Disney had done with all the animated movies back in the 90s and early 2000s. They did a bunch of direct-to-video animated sequels and stuff, and this one was pretty much like one of those, except this one actually went to theaters. Had a small run in the theaters, and I saw it a couple times in the theater. The first time was when I went to see it with my mom and my grandma and brother, and then the second time was the very first time I ever took a girl on a date. I used my allowance to pay for her to go with me, and we went to see Return to Neverland with a friend. She didn't sit with us or anything, but she was there to supervise. But we went. It was the first time I took a girl on a date though, and because of that, this movie kind of has a special place in my heart because of that and everything, and it has a lot of nostalgia. I have a lot of nostalgia for it. I was really into this movie when it first came out. I went to McDonald's almost daily to get the complete collection of the Peter Pan toys, and I always thought it was awesome because each time you get one, you'd get a piece of Captain Hook's pirate ship and everything, and once you got them all, you'd have Captain Hook's pirate ship, which I always thought was really awesome. And I just really loved this movie. I think it's actually one of the most underrated Disney sequels out there. It's one that I absolutely love. So, Return to Neverland is number 9, and number 8 is Dr. Seuss's Horton Hears a Who. This was one that I was actually kind of iffy on when it first came out, because I was never a huge fan of the book. As a kid, I always actually preferred Horton Hatches an Egg a lot more than this one. And so I didn't really know if I was going to like this one and stuff. I ended up seeing it at a dollar movie, and man, it was a lot of fun. Jim Carrey was great as Horton, and he's really what makes the movie to me. I mean, but Jim Carrey's one of my favorite actors. To me, he pretty much, I think there's maybe 1 or 2 movies that he's in that I'm not that crazy for. Most of his stuff I always really like and everything. He's just one of my favorite actors, and he was great in this. And Carol Burnett as the kangaroo was really good, and Seth Rogen as Morton was awesome too. And of course, Steve Carell was great as the mayor. But I just absolutely love Horton Hears a Who. It's really good animated movie. It's really underrated. It was actually the movie that I wanted to see win Best Animated Picture at the Oscars, and I don't think it even got nominated that year. But I remember, yeah, if I remember right, I was actually aggravated that they didn't even nominate it, because it was, to me, it was worthy of it. It's just a really good movie. So Dr. Seuss's Horton Hears a Who is number 8. Sorry. And number 7 is Monster House. Another one that, like Horton Hears a Who, I didn't really know what to think on this one. I went to see it at the dollar movie, which is pretty much a discount theater that at that time they would play movies for $1 or 50 cents if you go on Tuesdays. And I think it was a Tuesday that I went to that one. I went to see it, and I was like, man, I don't even know if I'm going to like this movie. But I ended up having a blast with it. I thought it was easily one of the best animated movies of the decade. It had a really great cast, and it was just a lot of fun. I love the characters, especially Chowder. He just cracks me up. And also love Nevercracker, played by Steve Buscemi. He did such a good job in that role. And it's just such a really, really good movie. And easily one of my favorite movies from the 2000s. So Monster House is number 7, and number 6 is Ice Age. I do like the 3rd movie the most out of the Ice Age series, but I'm giving it to this one because it was one that is pretty much the reason why I love this series, because it was the one that started it, and I just absolutely love this movie. The cast is really great in here. My favorite character is probably Manny, but I also love Sid. He's such a idiot and everything, and I even like Diego. I like how he starts off kind of bad, but he ends up having a redemption arc and everything. And I think that this one is just one of the best ones in the franchise, and it might be my favorite one. I need to rewatch them because I haven't seen them in quite a long time. In fact, I might review them next time I watch them. But yeah, so I'm giving the first Ice Age number 6 because, like I said, I like Dawn of the Dinosaurs, but this one was more original and stuff to me. And like I said, I have bigger nostalgia for this one, so that's the reason it's number 6. And number 5 is the Simpsons Movie. I wasn't a huge fan of the Simpsons growing up. But I did go through a phase where when this movie came out, where I got really into The Simpsons and everything. I never hated it though. I watched it often on TV, but it's just not one that wasn't one of the things I was obsessed with it until this movie came out. And I remember going to see this movie in the theater, and it just was a total blast. It was worth the wait, and I absolutely loved it. I haven't really watched The Simpsons much since the movie came out. I think I watched like the first season when it started back up. I watched that season, and then I kind of have lost track. And I've tried to watch it a few times in recent years, and it's just not as good. Yeah, it's kind of lost its spark, I guess. But I did love the Simpsons movie. I thought it was a blast, and kind of like the SpongeBob movie. I think if they would have ended the Simpsons with the Simpsons movie, I think that would have been a really good way to end the series, because it had the ending to me just felt like a perfect way that would have been perfect to end the series and everything. And I think the SpongeBob movie could have been the same way, because I think it was originally intended to be the end of the series, but I guess it did good enough that they decided to keep it going. But I do love this movie, and it feels like an hour and a half episode of the show, which I think it worked out good that way. And I also love like the meta humor and stuff, like at the beginning of it when Homer says is in the audience at the movie theater and they're watching the Itchy and Scratchy show, and he's like, I can't believe everybody in this audience is suckers paying to see something they could watch at home for free. And then he points at this at the screen and says, especially you. I love that part. And then I also love I love like how idiotic Homer is. He does a lot of really dumb stuff in this movie and everything, but he just cracks me up throughout the whole movie. And like the part when he has Bart going naked on the thing, and we see Bart's little thingy. That was a little too much, but it was still hilarious. And one of the other parts I love is like when the family leaves Homer and he's like walking through the Alaskan wilderness, and he's like, must keep going, can't keep going, yes I can, no I can't, oh shut up, no you shut up. When he does that, it just always cracks me up and everything. I just absolutely love the Simpsons movie. So it's number 5, and number 4 is Spirited Away. Now, when this movie came out, I think I checked it out at Hollywood Video, and I couldn't get into it and everything. I wasn't really into Studio Ghibli movies a lot as a kid. I liked Kiki's Delivery Service. That was really about it. I wasn't really into anime or Studio Ghibli movies, and the only anime show that I really liked a lot was Pokemon. I think that's anime. I think that counts as that. But I was not really into a lot of the Studio Ghibli movies. I didn't really start seeing them until just a few years ago. And I checked this one out at the library and watched it, and I don't know how I didn't like it back then as a kid, because that movie is amazing. The animation is stunningly gorgeous. The story is great. The lead character is great, and it's just a really good movie. I don't get why I didn't like it back then, because it's a great movie, and to me it's a masterpiece. I just absolutely love Spirited Away. So it's number 4, and number 3 is The Emperor's New Groove. Now this one was one that I kind of like The Iron Giant. I think it's really underrated, but I know that it has a huge fan base and a big cult following, so it's not really as underrated as I say it is. But I absolutely love this movie. The humor in here is great. David Spade as Cusco is just perfect, and John Goodman, who has been one of my favorite actors since I was a kid, his greatest Pacha. Um, yeah, and Kronk steals every scene he's in, and I love Yzma too. I think she's a good villain, and this is just a really, really good movie. It's just hilarious. It has a good message about you shouldn't the way you shouldn't treat people like you're better than them and stuff. Like the message of the movie is really good. The voice cast is great, and it's got a lot of really good humor in it. It's still rated G, which is something that you don't really see in animated movies. Usually, if the animated movies have a lot of great humor and stuff, they at least get the PG rating, and they have a lot more adult humor. And this one does have a little bit of adult humor, but they still manage to get the G rating. Like one of my favorite scenes is when Yzma is lifting up her skirt to get the knife and everything, and Cusco and Pacha are freaking out because she thinks that, I guess she thinks they're going to show him something else, and she just gets the knife, and they're like, "Oh, thank God." I don't know why, but that part always cracks me up. And then the pull the lever, Kronk, and she falls down into the water thing, and with the alligators, and she says, "Why do we even have that lever?" And like, there's a lot of meta humor and fourth wall breaking in this movie too that just makes it so much fun and everything. And I think that this one is just really, really underrated and everything. So The Emperor's New Groove is number 3, and number 2 is Finding Nemo. Finding Nemo is one of my favorite movies of all time, and it's easily my favorite Pixar movie. I really debated whether to have this one at number 1 or 2, but I went ahead and put this at number 2 because my number 1 is just, I'll talk about that in a minute. But Finding Nemo is just a really, really great movie. I love the voice cast in here, especially Ellen DeGeneres as Dory. She just is perfect as a character. But Albert Brooks is great as Marlin, and William Dafoe as Gil was great. And the entire cast is just really good. It has a really good voice cast, and it has a really good story, and it goes by really fast. Every time I watch it, it goes. If I want to try to pass time or something, if I watch Finding Nemo, that helps because it's a really, really fast-paced movie. It gets into the story really quickly and everything. It just is a lot of fun from beginning to end, and it's really, really great movie. So Finding Nemo is number 2, and number 1 is, of course, it has to be Shrek. I mean, obviously, this movie has had a big impact on me. That's why I go by Ogre Boy. When I was a kid, my obsession with this movie is what got me that nickname. In school, I had a bunch of Shrek toys, and I would always take them with me to school so I could play with them outside at recess. And I just had this huge obsession with the movie, and the kids would call me Ogre Boy because of it, and that's what kind of gave me my nickname. Some of them were doing it to be bullies, but some of them, but then it kind of stuck, and because it never really offended me because of how much I love Shrek, and it just kind of stuck, and it's been, that's why I go by Ogre Boys, because of this movie. This movie just is a total blast from start to finish, and like a lot of the movies on this list, I went in to see this movie not expecting to like it as much as I did, and it easily became my favorite movie of that year, which was a really good year for movies because Monsters Inc. and Harry Potter and Sorcerer's Stone came out that year, and The Lord of the Rings, or the Fellowship of the Ring, which I loved all three of those, but this one became my favorite movie of that year, and it's probably even my favorite movie of the 2000s, if you want me to be honest, and everything. I just absolutely love Shrek. I still love it just as much as I did back then, although I will say the animation does kind of look a little bit dated, though, and you can kind of tell that it's not as up to par as some of the other animated movies and everything, but it doesn't really matter to me. There's more movies that have worse animation than that, and everything. That's only the only little nitpick I can really think about this movie. The rest, its humor, pop culture references, which of course are outdated because a lot of them were references to stuff from the late 90s and early 2000s. But that, to me, that kind of is part of its charm. Is the part of is like the pop culture references and adult jokes and stuff. And I just absolutely love this movie. I don't think there's really enough words to express how much I love the first Shrek movie. So Shrek is number one. So anyway, let me know in the comments what your top 10 favorite animated movies of the 2000s were, or if you don't want to do top 10, just tell me your favorite one or whatever. And I hope you enjoyed this video, and have a good day, everybody. I almost forgot to do my honorable mentions. I'd like to give honorable mentions to Lilo and Stitch, which I thought was just a really, really good one. The Princess and the Frog was a great return to 2D animation. I wish it would have stayed, that would have lasted, but it didn't, unfortunately. Home on the Range, I think, is pretty underrated. I haven't seen it in a long time, so I might not enjoy it as much now, but I did like that one quite a bit as a kid. Jimmy Neutron, Boy Genius, The Wild Thornberrys movie, Rugrats in Paris. Those were all movies that I absolutely love that I just couldn't fit on here. So I just wanted to give those honorable mentions. And have a good day, everybody.
This is the song that doesn't end. Yes, it goes on and on, my friend.
That's enough, guys.
Some people started singing it, not knowing what it was, and they'll continue singing it forever just because this is the song that